Hello YouTube, Matt here from Vectis 3D Models, here with a kit instruction video for a Q1 Pacific. You may have seen this model on various other videos I have on this channel, but also on various other model railway forums, etc. This model really did have some inspiration from Bullied because I have seen the wooden model which is in the NRM department somewhere around the back, where it isn't seen very often, but has a lovely sort of glass display of various models of Bullied's locomotives and carriages. So this really is a 3D print of that wooden model, which will go on a ready to run chassis, which is quite key. You don't need any modification really to the chassis, and the bits that do need to be modified I have tried to supply in this kit. This kit is all completely 3D printed in resin and is quite a robust material. Not going to say what it is exactly, but there is a plastic element to it. This model, when built, will fit a Bullied unrebuilt Bullied Pacific from Hornby, and that is the chassis with 2 pins at the back, which is part of the motor mount, and 1 single screw underneath the bogie, which attaches the chassis to the body shell. Now the body shell here comes in 2 parts, front and back. It's just taped together at the moment so you can see it all in one piece. It will need some cleaning up and some filing and some dremeling a little bit as well. The body shell at the front is fitted with a small brass insert which will fit or take an M2 brass screw. Down in front of the body shell we have a pair of cylinders, 2 steam pipes which are mounted to the side of the body shell and go into the cylinders, 1 chimney to the right, and 2 pieces of pipe work which are also 3D printed, which will also fit this model. You will also have to supply your own bits and pieces in terms of paint, transfers, and also a boiler backhead, which some of these bits you can get from RT Models, which if you look at the PDF, all the links and product codes are in the description. Of course you will need a tender, whether that's a Q1 tender or another tender which you're going to repaint to go with this. This loco probably only ran in black, or would have run in black, and there's some debate whether it was the pre-model to the actual Merchant Navy or Light Pacifics or something like that. However, if you're interested, please go on to the links below and you'll see a Flickr link to an album which has all the photos of the first build of this kit, and also a lot of research into where this model came from. So without further ado, let's get on with it. So if you're still awake after that long and laborious introduction, you can see the kit here. Now I'm just going to go through little bits for you so you know what's what and what you get with the kit. You have the 2 parts of the body shell, some new cylinders which I've never done before, but this is a first. Reprofiled the steam pipes, so you've got 2 steam pipes left and right, chimney, a screw to attach it, and also a first as well, some 3D printed pipe work, one for this side and the other for the other side. So that's all first, and this has all been newly drawn for this kit. You will obviously need detailing parts like a handrail wire, safety valves, and also a boiler backhead. So that needs to be done. There may be some modifications to the coupling system between tender and locomotive, but it might only be minor, but we'll see when we get there. Now of course this kit requires a chassis, and as already said on the first part, you will need an unrebuilt Bullied chassis which will not need modification. So here is a chassis which I picked up off eBay. I also may have a spare one available at some point. Unfortunately the gear has split in the top and that needs repairing and changing, but they're no longer made. Thank you Hornby, well done. Really great thinking of spares there. Anyway, so this is the chassis which I have, which has gone through quite a hard time, but it works and it's in one piece. As you can see, it will need for 2 prongs at the back and a centre hole at the front end just underneath the bogie to attach the body shell to. You'll also need to remove and change the cylinders, so we can have these instead. These might make quite a good spare parts, so who knows, if you're nice I might be able to supply you with spare ones if necessary. So that is what you need, and as I've already mentioned, these do suffer from split gears, especially on the top section. They just split because they've been forced onto the axle itself, which runs through the gearbox housing. This is just DC ready model. Of course there are DCC versions out there, and the later ones now have a plug which go to the tender for sound and DCC, what have you. So we'll need one of those. You can probably be looking at 45–50 quid, or if you go to a trade show you might be able to, or model rail fair, trade show, etc., you might be able to find one for a bit cheaper. Glues you need basically Araldite and super glue. That's all you really need for this. Paints, whatever colour you want to paint it. This will be black probably, but it's going to be finished in grey because it's a prototype. So if it ever goes to an exhibition, people can see it and wonder what the hell is that. So apart from that, let's crack on. So turning the body shell upside down, you can see all the mounting points and my terrible tape work to hold it together. You can see the central screw at the front, and you can see the 2 holes at the back for the 2 pins on the motor mount. You can also see on the inside just about through the terrible tape work. You can also fill this with liquid gravity or some sort of ballast to try and give it some weight. The original one I built certainly pulled 8 carriages, I think it was, with ease. We also put a bit more on that and it ended up being 12, and it certainly pulled that okay. It's not a very heavy body shell. You can see around the back here, and you can see where glazing goes or whatever. So that's pretty simple. It's all got rivets on, as you can see. Holes for the safety valves and also the chimney. So first things first, I'm going to remove this terrible tape on the inside so we can start from scratch. And once I've done that, join me back here. We'll go through all the modifications that you need to do to put this together. So now we have the body shell in 2 parts. It will come like this. So this one will have 2 pins, you can see here. They'll fit into the 2 holes on here. Now, how to prepare the surface. Now the thing is, on these 3D prints, this one is printed that way up, so all the supports are on the back end here. And unfortunately what happens is that causes quite a lot of distortion and curvature. So it's best to sort of try and ensure everything is flat. And what I've sort of done with this is dremeled away the centerpiece so it sort of has a slight indentation, as it were, and then finished it off with a file, and it's quite raised around these 2 pins here. So you might want to go onto this end, and as you can see I've already sort of countersunk the holes slightly, just so that sort of bulging around the 2 pins doesn't offset it too much. And the best thing to do is just keep checking it, make sure it's nice and flat and level. Keep checking it up against the other part here. Should be enough material on this, and you can see that's not too bad. So you're sort of looking for, in the light, not so much light coming through, and you can see at the bottom there how it splays out slightly. So, and it's rocking slightly as well, so it still needs a little bit more off around the center pin here, just to make it sit down properly on the other end. So just keep checking as you go, and keep persisting with it. When you put the glue in as well, you can either do it with super glue or Araldite. I do prefer Araldite. because with a simple drop, super glue will just break. Any impact really, it will just break bond. So Aerolite for this when it's done. So this side will need a little bit more filing around the pin, and once that's done and ready to go, it can be then attached to the other end. So as you can see, the top and the bottom is now glued together. I've just basically put a very small amount of Aerolite around the inside of the joint, so when it pushes down you can clamp it together. If you can just about get a clamp in there, I've just pushed this down together, so pretty much is sort of free holding at the moment. But I just basically put a small amount of glue around the inside of the joint, a little bit around the pegs, and that's obviously going to seep through down into the other part, but that's not too bad. It's not on the surface, so I don't want it to ooze out as you push it down together. So that is now done. So while that is drying overnight, I'll turn my attentions to the chassis and making the changes there that I need to basically fit the cylinders. So that will be in the next section. So that leads us nicely onto the workbench with the chassis. So as I've already mentioned, I put this one back together as this was bought on eBay as a spares and repair job lot. I've got two of them. This one's been put back together, the other one needs a little bit more work, and that one will go up for sale. If somebody wants to buy it along with the kit, then they can, but do assume by this point in time, 2024 January, this has been recorded and probably be uploaded by February. It'll probably be gone, so but keep an eye on the Facebook page, and you never know. So this chassis will need a few small modifications. Firstly, it needs to be wired up to the pickups and all that on the rear, but apart from that, this will need new cylinders, and of course I've now 3D printed some to go with this. So this is a whole brand new CAD. Never done these before with it, but I thought I'd try and do the whole thing so you won't have to chop or modify the original cylinder block. So these are 3D printed in black resin. I'm going to tell you exactly what resin, but a good one. It's all riveted, all nicely detailed, etc. I've inserted some brass tube, which should be on yours, so, and if they're not, please contact me and I'll sort that out. On the underside we have holes on the underside for drain cocks if you want to fit them. These are from RT Models. They're the original bullied Pacific drain cocks. You can see there, all nicely etched, and they will just fit into the holes on the underside of the block. Now this cylinder block will need a little bit of tidying up on the underside. You can see there, all nice and cleaned, filed off, and also using a fiberglass pen to clean that as well. All you need to do, and tools, you'll need a Phillips screwdriver to undo the screw on the front and remove the front cylinder block. Hopefully it will actually play ball today. There we go. So they're out. You can put that in the spares box, and these can be slid into place with any luck. That's one in. Back in the cylinder. There we are. New cylinders. Looks good. Right level. They're an exact copy of the Hornby one, so it should be fine. So that is now ready to go, and once the body shell over there is dry, then we can do a test fit. So tomorrow, or next part, I will show you that being tested. Okay, so you join me here on the next stage or the next day, you can see the body shell here is firmly on the chassis. It's not screwed down, but it fits, it's okay, and it looks fine. A little bit of filling needed around here. I've still got a few small gaps, so I'll put some filler in there. But now really we're going to start at the front and move our way towards the back of the model, detailing it and putting the bits on. Now I'm going to put some primer on this shortly, so it'll protect it from UV, sunlight, etc. As this resin is UV sensitive. So we're going to start at the front and I'll take you through what we have. So at the front, which will needed to be fitted, we have some buffers here. These ones are from Slater's. They are the Southern or LNER type, which you can see there. Same ones we used on the Q1 tank engine. If you want to save a little bit of money but go a slightly different route, you can also get some white metal castings from RT Models. A little bit cheaper, of course, and these fit quite nicely into the holes. You will need to open up the holes for the other ones just to make them fit a bit easier, but you can also attach some other bits to it, which we'll come on to in a second. The next bit are the brass steps here. These are lost wax castings, again from RT Models. You can find these on the Albert Goodall range from RT Models. Anything bullied you will find under the Albert Goodall range in the 00 standard gauge stuff. These will need trimming, filing, and if you want you can solder them on to the buffers if you wish, if you have the brass ones, or I'll probably suggest gluing them on to the white metal ones. So that's mainly the major furniture around the front end. If you want a coupling hook, I have these, which are just basically brass etched coupling hooks, MT356. I also have some white metal ones, but I don't really like those. They just break off quite easily when you're left with something left in the hole, which is a bit annoying. After that you'll have either some vacuum or some steam heat pipes you can fit. Various suppliers out there, so that's down to you. Moving back from there, you can also put on the etched drain cocks, which we saw in the last bit from RT Models as well. And then moving back a bit further, we can fit the steam pipes to the body shell first. We're not going to stick them into the cylinder or glue them into the cylinder because you won't be able to remove the body shell. Following that, chimney would be glued on onto the top here, and then moving back, safety valves. I got these from markets and we'll go into that shortly. Back from that point, going to be the pipe work, which you've already seen at the beginning of the video, and then the cab. And from there we're going to connect it up with a tender of my choice, which I'm going to use a Q1 tender. So start on the front, work our way backwards. So I'm just opening up the holes in the front buffer beam up to about 2.8 mil. They may need a little bit more widening, but this is the biggest drill I have. And with a little bit of there we go, a little bit of moving around, hopefully we can get it in. I might have to open up the hole slightly more with a Dremel. But you can see I've already got that one on as well, but you can see it's still a little bit tight going in the hole, so that needs to be opened up slightly more. And on the front I'm going to use the brass coupling hook. I've opened up the hole slightly with a small drill, and I've trimmed down the brass coupling hook. You can just about see there, especially the rod on the end, to just get that in there. That'll be glued into place. You can get a 3-link chain, or a screw-link chain I should say. You can add whatever detail you want on the front of there. Now that that all fits together, I can then move on to soldering the steps onto the buffers, or buffer shanks, or buffer housings, and then I can move backwards onto the smoke box, where you can see it needs various bits of detail. So what I'm going to do next on this build, as we went through it from front to back, I've taken all the other small bits off, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fit on the chimney here, which will just be a little bit of glue around the inside of the cutout there, and also the steam pipes which come out the side here. But you'll need to put this onto the chassis to gauge the height correctly. So all you need is your chimney on this section, and a little bit of glue. I'm just using some super glue here, which is pretty much all bunged up, as it usually does because it sets too quickly. I'm just going to run a little bit on the underside of the chimney there. You can put it on the inside if you wish, and I'm going to just put this into the hole there, press it down and make sure that's nice and fitted. There we go. So next part we'll go on to the steam pipes, and as you can probably see as well, I have primed this just to protect it from UV or anything else, any damage to the body shell as well. So I'll move on to the next section now. So here we have our bullied unrebuilt chassis, or the original type of chassis. You've seen this in the previous part also, but we're going to be needing this today. So we'll take our body shell. I'm going to just ease it over the two pins at the back. There you go, that slipped on very nicely and nice and firmly down. Now this next part, as I mentioned previously, we'll need our steam pipes here, 3D printed. I do need some tidying up on the underside of the pad and also the underside of the pipe itself. That one is for the right hand side and this one is for the left hand side. You can't really see it because it's in shadow, but there's a hole just here, just above the slide bar going up the top, and then there's also a hole on the top of the cylinder. So we'll just do a check and a test fit first and make sure that all fits, as in a dry fit as it were. And that's gone in, so you can see that's okay, and that fits alright. So now what we need to do is we need to put some glue around the part that goes onto the body shell. Obviously you don't want to glue this end to the cylinder, otherwise you can't take the body shell off. So we'll just put a small amount of glue on the smaller end, just line up that one there, rotate it in and drop it in position. What I'll then do is just sort of tweak it around a little bit to try and make sure it's sitting reasonably level on the cylinder itself. So if I just hold that for a few seconds and let it go, hopefully it will be quite happily sitting there and drying while I do the other side. There we go, we can see that quite nicely. So on the front end so far, I've installed the buffer housings and the steps, which have been soldered together, the coupling hook, and I've also installed the bottom 3 lamp brackets or irons. The lamp irons were made from 0.8mm brass strip, and these have been folded and shaped into what I required. I'm now up onto the smoke box door here, and I'm using some small tweezers and a very small amount of glue. I'm just going to dip in here into some glue. Slide it into one of the holes. There we go, just push that in. There we are. 2 down, 1 to go at the top. So the last remaining piece to add to the front end here, apart from all the pipe work on the buffer beam and hoses etc, is obviously we have 2 holes here on the smoke box door for basically a piece of handrail, so you can pull the door open, I imagine. I'm using some 0.45 brass rod or handrail wire to you and me. I'm just going to trim that down. It's about 1.5 mm from there to the end. Trim this side down. It's just been shaped according to where the holes are, and it stands approximately 10 mil wide. So we're just going to snip that off. If I can see the mark I've made. There it is. Just using a little bit of super glue on the end, I'm going to put that into the 2 holes on the smoke box. And there we have a pretty much complete front end on this locomotive. Now what we're going to do is move backwards towards the safety valves. So midway down the boiler barrel now, we have 2 holes here, one here and one here, for the safety valves. Now I've purchased probably the wrong ones, but I've purchased some of these, which is Markets safety valves, Merchant Navy hexagonal Ross Pop, 3 of 2 parts. I thought, well, bullied is a bullied, so I think I've purchased these from Peter's spares, I can't quite remember, but I'm going to use these, but of course other ones are available, so I'm going to just cut those out and start assembling. Holes are already there, but you might need to re-drill them. At least the holes are the right size, you won't need to drill any, or re-drill any at least. They're quite fiddly to put together, as you can probably see. And they will need trimming down on one end. There we go. And I'll just simply insert into the holes like so. Of course they'll need gluing in place, maybe a little dab of super glue, bit of a trim on the underside, and that's done. Moving on, we'll be going further down the body shell and probably looking at fitting the pipe work on the underside of the boiler barrel going towards the cab. So on the underside of the model you can see a few areas here which may be of interest. So we have a small slot here on the underside and also another one just here. Sometimes this does not print very well, so you may need to reopen the hole with a drill bit and just try and work your way up and down, maybe a couple of 2 or 3 holes in a row just to insert what we need to insert. And we're going to start on this side. This is the pipe work here, which you saw at the very beginning of this video. This has been 3D printed, so it is a little bit bendy and flexible, and obviously can warp as well, so you may need to warm it up in some water just to get it into the shape you desire. A little dab of glue on each end, so end there, and end here. First one to go on will be this one, and that will fit into the hole on the front of the cab. And then onto here, so top one in first, okay, then onto the underside of the casing there. Just hold it there while it dries, and this one will bend round and go into the little hole on the side of the main frames there, which will be glued in place. Alright, there's that one, that's glued into position. You do have to be careful a little bit, just so it doesn't bow or bend a little bit too much, and then breaks the resin. Resin is quite a nice material in a way, because when it breaks it separates nice and cleanly and you can glue it back together. So it's not too bad if you do break it, but try not to. So with that drying off, I will add a bit of glue around this section just down here and fit that into place, then proceed to the other side and glue the next parts on. Okay, around the other side, these are the second set of pipe work. This sort of includes all the injectors and pipe work up underneath the boiler casing there. It's basically a copy of what's on the sort of Merchant Navy's West Countries unrebuilt ones. These two ends will go in the 2 holes under there. They may need opening out slightly, and this pad here just needs to be tidied up a little bit, and you do need to tidy up the back of your pipe work, not that anyone's going to see it. You may want to paint this before installing it, it can be quite fiddly otherwise. And this pad will basically fit behind onto here. So that's what we're aiming for. So if you just want to do a little sort of dry test run like I'm about to do here. Okay, it's gone in now. and then that sits on there like so. There we go. So that's the aim. I'm going to put some glue there and on the underside there, and see how we get on. So moving to the rear of the Q1 Pacific. So we'll start in the cab. We'll obviously need something to block that rather large hole, which will be basically a back head, and you can see here a nice casting, although not the best casting I've seen, but these castings are quite old now. This is from the Albert Goodall range on RT models. The code and part number is on the PDF document on the product description on the website. So this is basically a white metal casting which has been cleaned up a little bit, but it does struggle to sort of see some of the finer detail of gauges and things on here, but we'll prime it and then we'll place it inside, or maybe leave it as it is so people can see what it is. And this will tuck neatly in here. Just about manage to get it round. Be careful of the small parts that might fall off, like the reverser handle there. There we go. And that will sit nicely in there with a little bit of glue, of course. I'll probably use some araldite for that, just to hold it in place. It adds quite a nice bit of weight to the back end of this bullied. And what we'll then do after that is then we'll move on to more handrails. You can see 2 holes there and 2 holes there. 0.45mm brass wire, bent at right angles at each end, glued in and pushed into the holes there. They may need re-drilling, but that is up to you to gauge. On the further back, on the actual drag box here, you can see 2 holes here and here, and my intention is to make a full plate out of some sort of checkered brass sheet, which I will show you very shortly after I've done all the handrails etc. on the rear. So as you can see, handrails have been installed on each side, a very fiddly little job. Next fiddly little job to get onto is the full plate. Now, as I already pointed out on the previous section, we have 2 holes, one here and one here. That's at 0.8 of a mil, and you need to make a full plate. You don't have to, but I do anyway, just to sort of improve the detail in that area. So what I've done here is made one up. This is some checkered plate, or diamond checkered plate, and you can buy that from Wizard, a former mainly Trains product, MT355. It's only a small etch, but useful for little things. And this is made up of a small section, which has been made up about I think it's 7 or 8 mil that way and about 7 mil that way, and then it's been wrapped around a piece of 0.8 mil brass rod. Got a little stopper there. I'm going to solder this to this as well, just to keep it solid. And once that's been done, I'll be fitting it to the back of the cab here, or on the drag box I should say, and that should sit quite nicely at the rear. So I'll solder that up and then I'll attach it to the model. So we're almost there. Everything's been put together. Nothing's been added in terms of weight. Back head's done, the cab's done, front end's done. I've even added the brake rigging on the outside of the chassis as well. So what's left to do, you can see we're missing some drain cocks here, and I showed these earlier on in the video. These are some RT models, etched drain cocks for the cylinders. All these need to do is to be separated from the brass sprue, as it were, filed and trimmed and bent into place so it gets around the front bogie wheels, and fitted with a little dab of glue. These will not be soldered to the steps because you won't be able to take the body shell off. So I'll fit them now, just show you where they go, and that'll pretty much be it. So I hope you can see on the underside of this cylinder there's a hole there and a hole next to it. There's another hole on the underside of this cutout just here. And what we'll need to do, these drain cocks here, you can see have various legs, and they basically slot into the holes, and you can glue them into position and place. If you can see this okay on the camera, there you go. So that's slotted in there, and if I just rotate this over very carefully, you can see on the back here, I pointed out, get these bogie wheels out of the way, you can see there's an additional hole just there where this leg will go into. So there we are, just fitted in just there. So there we have it then. We have the drain cocks now fitted to both sides of the locomotive. I've also added a few bits on the buffer beam as well, if I haven't mentioned that already. The drain cocks are shaped around the front wheels just to give them a little bit more movement from side to side. These drain cocks aren't fitted or fixed to the front steps in any way, because you need to take your body shell off at some point to do either maintenance or some work. The drain cocks are sort of splayed out more than they should, so basically the steps are holding them in position and place. The only other small thing really left to do is test run it, but before I'm going to do that, I need to add some additional weight to the body shell. Steam locos are always quite light on their feet because they're lacking the weight and there's not really much place to put it. In this body shell you have sort of voids on these sections here on the inside, all the way along past the motor. Just a word of warning, do be careful around the motor and make sure all the weight is fixed in place, because you don't want the magnet to pull the weight out and get attached to the motor, or even go into the motor causing damage. The weight I use is by Deluxe Materials. This is called Liquid Gravity. Kind of a sort of lead shot in a way, but it's not lead from what I understand. And you use this and pour it into any void or crevice. I use this on the Baxter kit as well. And then I use their glue, which is called Rocket Hot, so the red one, which is a type of super glue, and that sort of gets absorbed by these sort of ball bearing weights, as it were, and is sort of absorbed via capillary action, and make sure there's enough glue in there to hold it all together. So you may want to go quite mad on it, but do be careful. It does run very well, the Rocket Hot. Give it a shake around, make sure it's all stuck down properly, and good to go. Apart from that, that's all I have to sort of show you on this. So it's off to the workbench where we will give it a test run. So there we have it then, the bullied Q1 Pacific. This is now going to be available on the Made Me website, which you can find in the description below. You can also find a PDF with a write-up of the instructions of this kit, and of course you have to provide your own chassis. The price for this kit is approximately £50. That doesn't include postage. It'll be shipped 24-hour raw mail shipping from the website. Hopefully you find this interesting. If you have any questions, please ask below. And if you need any assistance, we're always available on the email vectis3dmodels@btinternet.com. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you order very soon.